Hi everyone, I'm Alicia Fiorletta, Managing Editor of Channel Marketer Report, and I have with me right now Laz Gonzalez, who is the Service Director of Channel Management Strategies at SiriusDecisions. Laz, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Alicia. Appreciate it.
Well, a little while back, you guys, had your annual summit. So I guess to kick off our conversation, I'd love to hear more about, key summit takeaways and just the overall experience for you guys.
Well, it was an amazing summit. It was the first week of May, and we had it at the Manchester Hyatt in San Diego. So this was our 9th summit, and we've pretty much been doubling its size year over year. We now had 1,500 participants in the summit. Wow. So it was, it's becoming, interestingly enough, a place where B2B sales and marketers are now worried about whether or not they're not going to be there versus being there. It's a time for senior marketing and sales executives to, break free the office and have a listen to what are the best practices happening out there, hear firsthand from leading companies in the space. So this was a really exciting event for us. And in the channel specifically, we had our own track where we really focused on sales and marketing around channel topics, and that was really big.
Yeah, absolutely. I know from our perspective, it's definitely the go-to event to really keep a pulse on what's happening, especially in the channel, which seems to be so much more complex and has a variety of different needs than just standard B2B.
Absolutely. I think, the channel has a new set of needs, new set of requirements. And, when we're thinking about the content to develop for our track in the channel, we really wanted to make it a reflection of the questions that we were being asked as analysts. So, issues around visibility, issues about, who's doing things right out there. We also wanted to take a chance and talk about the demand waterfall and how that kind of fits into the channel, how companies are using it there.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually one of the key things I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, the re-architected demand waterfall is, a big hot topic for people who attended and also people who didn't but want to get some of the key takeaways. But, you guys touched a little bit on how this new demand waterfall impacts the channel specifically. So can you share some details for our viewers about that?
Yeah, this was, we announced the re-architected waterfall last year, and that gave marketers a chance at looking at not just leads that were being generated through automated methods or, multi-touch programs, but to be very specific and identify the source of those leads. So tele-qualified leads, automation qualified leads for companies that are doing scoring, and also sales generated leads. And in the channel, that's when the partner generates leads on their own. So during the talk, it was the re-architected waterfall in the channel. I was up there with one of our senior analysts, Matthew Pertzian, and Matt was convincing me that the re-architected waterfall was ready for the channel. And I kind of played naysayer, and every time he would come up and say, well, let's talk about measurement, how that's going to get better. And we argued the point about visibility not always being there and companies having to solve for visibility, maybe using incentives to motivate partners to report or, really having sound processes and deal registration and things like that that are really important. So in terms of the re-architected waterfall, I think the things that were kind of takeaways for the people who were there is that, yes, it's ready for the channel, and it does take into account very specific instances where marketing programs are being delivered to partners, either through tele-generated leads or tele-qualified leads, automated scoring leads. A lot of companies, they take leads that are, being generated from either digital programs like email programs or even website hits, and they score those leads so that when they feel that that prospect is ready to go, they'll send that to a partner. So the re-architected waterfall now takes that into account. So, safe to say after our discussion with Matthew at the summit that it is ready. So it's actually something that our clients are starting to use. So it's great.
Excellent. Yeah. And it'll be exciting to see, some of those best practices and, how organizations really embrace this, especially in the channel. So, obviously one of the key things that, we love to see from SiriusDecisions is you guys really have a handle on those best practices and those organizations that are really leading the pack, so to speak. And, you touched on excellent partner programs. That visibility issue obviously is consistent, something that we've seen from an editorial perspective. But, you touched on a few of those best-in-class programs during the summit. So I'd love to hear more about, those programs and, more importantly, what others in the channel space can learn from it. I know Adobe and SAP were two of the key winners. So if you can share a high level of that.
Yeah, actually there was PrimePay, which was a company that does financial applications. There was Adobe, as you mentioned, and SAP. And there was also Progress Software, a company that develops OEM solutions that, they make databases run better and ERP systems run faster. So in the main event, we had our ROI winners. And those were companies, I think there were also speakers at the summit. In the channel track, we also had Programs of the Year, and that was a presentation that I was joined with one of our research directors, Maria Chen, and we identified 4 programs that we thought were doing an incredible job in very specific areas. For example, Progress Software created a Learn and Earn program. And the Learn and Earn program saw incredible adoption by partners, and we all know adoption by these third parties is usually a big problem. So by combining a learning experience with a demand creation experience and rewarding partners for taking that learning with incentives, they created a smooth process that really motivated those partners to learn what they had to learn, to promote the products, and then apply that in demand creation programs that included social media, included sales enablement, and demand creation tactics like digital marketing. So Progress did a great job there. But that was just the enablement side. We just wanted to see what they were doing with the enablement and demand creation. We then wanted to also look at who's using technology to create demand in a different way. And that's when we highlighted SAP. SAP's virtual agency is one amongst many portals out there that companies are using to get those partners to do marketing with them. But my virtual agency, as it's called by SAP, again, really took into consideration what we call that concierge approach. Right. So they're guiding the partner through and accommodate small partners where there is no marketing know-how or resources, and so they need a little bit more hand-holding. And through automation, they're able to step them through the next step in a marketing program, for example. To larger partners that already have marketing departments, and they have people who would take the assets that SAP would offer through this portal and then customize those and re-syndicate those, and those would be for their larger partners. What was really interesting was how SAP used social media to promote this tool, because we're big fans of not taking the build it and they will come approach. With the average adoption for these portals hovering below 25%, and that's to say if you had 100 partners, you're most likely to have only about 20 to 25% actually using this stuff, and for many reasons. The fact that they went out and socially promoted the portal, got the folks involved in it, really showed up in the adoption, the rates by partners and things like that. So, it was something worth calling out. There were 2 other programs. There was Adobe's, and Adobe really, they've gone out and talked about this. We caught wind of it while we were working with their North American channel team. And they had this program called Define and Assign. And it looks at existing customers or customers who were Adobe customers in the past, and using data, they were able to narrow in what those customers bought and why they made those purchase decisions. So for example, if you were using an Adobe product 2 years ago and you were using it specifically for a set of features in particular to your industry, maybe education or in entertainment, whatever it is, Adobe figured that, well, those folks bought for these 3 feature sets, which were really strong. Let's now isolate and zero in on those companies and provide a list, that's the define, and then assign that list to our resellers. So working primarily with the corporate resellers like CDW and Insight, they then went to the individual reps and said, here's a list of people who have bought our product in the past and have a higher propensity to buy this new product because of the features that it has. So it was coupled with reasons to call. So now that rep received the list of somewhat interested prospects, went down the list with specific reasons. For example, you were using Adobe products 2 years ago for entertainment. Let me talk to you about what they have now that is also resonating in that industry. And really the sales went through the roof. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they were incredibly dramatic in terms of the results. Now this is a program that they're going to scale out globally now because of the results that they were getting. And so the other one So we had 3 programs that I talked about. The SAP one, we had the Define and Assign program, we had the Learn and Earn program, and the last one was a company that really focused on PrimePay, focused on broker-dealer channels. Okay. Now, these are not your typical technology partners. They're brokers that sell, financial instruments and life insurance and retirement plans, things like that. And they created a program around recruiting new brokers into their organization, which was really compelling. They used our recruitment waterfall, which is a model that we use, and tailored it to the broker, even to the point when they get to the stage of engaging with the brokers, they looked at the kind of incentives that these brokers are used to receiving from financial services companies, like special trips and VIP type rewards, and they actually came up with a black envelope incentive, which they actually mailed out and included, some VIP treatment to these brokers who became top sellers for them. So those were the programs of the year that we featured in a presentation Maria Chen and myself delivered. And you can see next year there were a lot of people in the audience that were saying, we want to be one of your programs of the year next year. So it kind of really set the stage for it. So.
Wow, that's excellent. So it seems like all of those programs of the year really touched on different elements or different best practices that I think a lot of folks in the channel really want to embrace and, encourage their partners to, have more engagement and loyalty to their programs and obviously have better results. So, with that, Laz, to close off our conversation, I'd love to hear more about, any planning assumptions or high-level trends or expectations you may have for the next year when it comes to the channel.
Yeah, it's we always have a lot to say about what's happening and what's going to happen, but it's interesting. As analysts, we are on the phone or in person with our clients, advising them about questions they have. So a typical analyst might have 6, 7 calls per day, 1-hour-long type calls. When we hear the same question more than once, we start asking ourselves, what's behind the question? Why are people asking this? During the course of the year, we compile all these questions and start picking out trends. And one of the things that we actually do is we write about these trends, our planning assumptions, and we lay them out for the coming year. Now, this year's planning assumptions are pretty interesting. They're a reflection of the questions we're being asked and some of the things that are happening out there. For example, I mentioned the portal dynamics around SAP's portal. What companies are doing around that, and a trend that we see happening, is consolidating those portal efforts. Rather than create multiple places where partners need to go to find things, we see a sort of a re-engineering effort where companies are saying, hey, we've got deal registration over here, we have campaign building tools over here. Let's find ways of putting it all in one place and making it easy for partners to find this, knowing that if they do that, they'll get better adoption, right? So that's one of the big things, the consolidation of the portal. Another big one is we see companies dialing up enablement. So we see expanded enablement initiatives, such as, for example, marketing enablement. It used to be that marketing was done by the supplier and the selling, or at least the last mile execution, was done by the partner. Now it's clear that suppliers are adopting a partner-led approach. In other words, let's teach these guys how to fish rather than fish for them. And in doing so, there's a lot of learning taking place. Everything from sales enablement and companies lacking a framework to really put their arms around that, to things like demand type selling, so that, for example, if you're selling a cloud solution, what type of demand should you be generating with that customer? Should it be an established market, a new paradigm, or a new concept? And those subtleties are very important, because those are the things that come out of the partner's mouth when they're speaking with the customer. So, suppliers are really focused on those talk tracks, making sure that the value message is being delivered the right way, and a real effort around this enablement to do that in a comprehensive way. Visibility, that's another big one. We see organizations going beyond visibility and moving towards more accountability. So, there's a lot of programs that we see around performance-based outcomes where companies are saying, we're just not concerned with working with an organization that would give us 6 teleservices people to make call outs to partners. What we really want is 100 marketing qualified leads, and wanting to engage with those suppliers to deliver that type of performance. So the visibility becomes not just reading into what partners are submitting, but really getting into the next step and really understanding what kind of results are we looking for here. Let's plan for those results. Let's create programs that take us in that direction. So that beyond visibility is another one that we see organizations. So the portal consolidation, the enablement spend, the visibility. I think there's one other that we also see, and maybe it's because it's kind of a service that we provide, the benchmarking service.
Right.
We have a model called the TREAD model, and actually in the summit we talked about how the TREAD model has evolved from being a tool just to capture financial spend information to now really being able to pick out best practices by looking sort of like an X-ray at a program and being able to see, hey, here's what you're doing behind the scenes. Well, that benchmarking process is something that we see organizations really taking serious now. In fact, we see them looking at benchmarking and applying it to, for example, when they make a new acquisition, how do they merge those programs together? What are the benchmark spends in the different types of partners that you're supporting? When they make a new alliance, when one company gets together with another company to sell a bundled solution, how do I support that alliance? Because there's investments required there. So the benchmarking now is becoming something that, like I said, companies are adding a little bit more rigor to the way that they operate in the channels, and that's becoming something that's important to channel leaders and will be important to them for years to come.
Excellent. That's definitely a lot of really great stuff, and I think you guys do a really great job of hitting on those pain points that we see so many times in the channel, and providing those best practices and obviously the expectations for the future. So we continue to look to SiriusDecisions as definitely a thought leader in this space. So it's always a pleasure to chat with you and get your thoughts on what's happening in the channel world. So thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with me today, and thanks everyone out there for watching.